Hey, who needs a striker when you got Kai Havertz? This is the Arsenal Raw Reaction Show. Hello and welcome to the Gooner Talk, back again with you guys and girls for another episode of what is the Arsenal Raw Reaction Show. Joining you every single morning at 8 a.m. UK time. Thank you, as always, for joining me and making sure that this is part of your morning routines. Thank you so much for doing so. It's massively appreciated. And I hope you've had a very good week. And I hope you enjoyed last night's affairs as Arsenal ran out 3-0 winners against Dinamo Zagreb in the Champions League. It was a performance that was very much needed, a performance that was very much appreciated, and a performance that will see Arsenal effectively make their way through to the last 16 of the competition without having to play in that dreaded playoff. It also means that the TGT live show will be unimpeded by Arsenal having to play during that midweek round of fixtures, which is also very much appreciated, considering the fact that we've done that live show at a time where we thought that things were going to be, I don't know what the best way to put it. I thought it was going to be clear, and then it turned out that week was meant to be for those playoffs. And and now what we've seen is that they scheduled them for those games, and now Arsenal aren't in them. So we don't need to worry about that. Oh, we've already made someone mad. Francis is angry in the chat. Can't take a joke this morning. Maybe it's too early for some. If you really couldn't understand the lightheartedness of the joke, then really you are taking things a little too seriously, I think. Good morning to those joining us though live in the chat box. I much appreciate you all being here. Glenn, Amira, Mars Cannon. We've got Brian. We've got Rich. We've got Runs of Cows, Knowledge, Carl, and plenty more of you guys and girls as well. James, Louis, Black Shine, Rowan, Loga, Martin, Ken. Thank you for you all tuning in. Very much appreciate you being here. And we'll get to your comments, get to your thoughts in part 2 of the show as well. I'm going to be reeling them in today with that thumbnail. Right, let's jump into today's stories though, shall we? We begin, of course, with more of a broader look at the results. Back on track and into the last 16. Basically into the last 16. I think it turns out there is a 0.046% chance that Arsenal will not be making it through. So I'm very comfortable just saying we're through. I'm willing to go out on a very risky limb here and say that Arsenal will be in those last 16 games. That match against Girona, by the way, still very important for Arsenal because it means if you can finish higher up the table, theoretically, it gives you better seeding when it comes to kind of the knockout stages. So Arsenal absolutely want to finish as high up that table as they can, because it would give Arsenal, on paper at least, better draws. But when you see the table as is, and we'll look at that later, it's not as simple as getting just easier draws after some of the sides that have had poor games. Arsenal and Mikel Arteta, of course, went with an interesting team. There was some rotation in the side, some freshness to the team. And interesting to see Jakub Kiwior playing at right-sided centre-half, because I thought a left foot couldn't play in that role, but he was playing there last night. Jurriën Timber, Gabriel Zinchenko making up the rest of the back four. Jorginho, Rice and Odegaard in the middle. Jorginho, I thought, was excellent. And Raheem Strerling, Martinelli and Havertz were the front three. Back on the bench, Calafiori and Nwaneri. However, no sign of Myles, Lewis, Skelly. We'll talk about his absence in a little bit as well. Declan Rice smashed Arsenal into a 1-0 lead. Brilliant finish after a really nice move. Martinelli down the left-hand side. Pinpoint cross once again, similar to that of Trossard actually in the game against Aston Villa. Pinpoint cross to Havertz, whose touch was just so silky as it laid off the ball for Rice, to just on the half volley smash past the goalkeeper. That was, I thought, going to be the start of an absolute rout. I'll be very honest. You get the sense that when that goal went in, it was going to be a parade of goals and a parade of finishing. But that was, for me, a moment that was a false dawn, it turned out, because as the halftime whistle rolled round, Arsenal had not yet managed to take advantage of that 1-0 lead, and the score remained as is. And I was kind of left at halftime having a chat with some of the guys thinking, well, I wish I could be talking about a bit more than just the one goal right now. But it was a very nice finish from Declan, and certainly a welcome arrival. Eventually, though, Arsenal did get the second goal as Kai Havertz turned from creator into goal scorer. Again, Gabriel Martinelli on that left-hand side, whipped cross that I really enjoyed these types of aggressive crosses that are going toward the box rather than curling away from them. And Havertz leapt and found himself in a very strong position to find himself there and head past Nevistic, I think the goalkeeper was, very comfortably indeed. A header that I think shows that, he is capable of scoring these chances. We've seen him miss some headed opportunities in recent games, and we need him to get that confidence back aerially. So it was very good to see him get on the end of that cross and finish very comfortably. A goal and assist for Havertz, very nice. And then, of course, right at the end of the game, not Gabriel Martinelli, he was off by this point, but Leandro Trossard on the left-hand side, coming on to make his 100th appearance for Arsenal, gets the ball across the box, slight deflection, taking it to the back post, and who is there? Martin Odegaard, who is gambling on the ball, moving into that right space, and very comfortable. In the end, I think Odegaard would need that, a really big boost to him and Havertz and their confidence in terms of their goal scoring. So really happy for them to get the goals. If you were looking at two players that needed to score, I think you're probably looking at those two. So it was great to see both of them on the scoreline and regain some confidence going into the weekend. And I do want to highlight the out-and-out brilliance of Jorginho. Now, there's been some suggestions that Jorginho could leave the club, not just this summer, but leave the club as early as this winter. And that would be a real shame. I think, to see Jorginho leave during this window, because I think that he is and maintains a level of quality that we need in this group, that can give players like Partey and Rice a rest, that can bring a player in like him in calm circumstances, and he can just stroll through games very, very comfortably. So it really was, I think, an important performance and reminder from Jorginho just how key he was to the game. And it turns out that maybe Arteta had a little bit of a point when it came to not playing Jakub Kiwior. Now, I have a lot of appreciation and time for Jakub Kiwior, but all of the chat after Partey played at right back against Villa was, you've got Kiwior on the bench, you've got a centre-half sitting there, why not play him instead of moving Timber to the right back position? And I said it to you on the show the other day, I'd rather change the position of one player. More naturally, Timber can play right back. He's very comfortable as a centre-half as well. Keeping the midfield as is, keeping the centre-halves as is, so they're natural, and then you only change one position. Well, Jakub Kiwior made a rather large error, of course, that was very nearly punished, with the game still at 1-0 at this point. To be fair, Jurrien Timber also nearly made a very frustrating error, but he thankfully made up for it. But Kiwior's error, I think, stood out and will be something in the minds of fans and, of course, Arteta as well, after the discussion about who starts in certain positions and who plays in these areas. And Kiwior is a limited player. He's a player that ultimately is going to move on at some point, and Arsenal will be, lucky to break even on the mistake, on the kind of the 20 million that we paid for it. But I think this was one of those moments again where he's turned into trouble and got away with it. And hopefully William Saliba is back very soon. But overall, he was fine. As the game progressed, he was okay. Kept the ball distributed well and passing well. But it was a worrying moment, that's for sure. And Arteta gave another debut. We've given a lot of debuts this season. Kukuri, Kabia, of course, Myles, Lewis, Skelly and Nwaneri now part of this team. And Nathan Butler-Odegaard came off the bench with minutes to spare. He's actually waiting to come off the bench for a significant amount of time before he actually got on the field. I felt for the guy. He was standing there waiting for the ball to go out of play. 2 corners go through. The ball just won't come out of play. And he's standing there on the sidelines. And it's it's frustrating for him, but at least he got on. At least he's got that appearance now, and he's got that kind of mark against his, or rather on his CV, that he has played a game for the Arsenal. So it was a nice moment, but I did, my goodness me, feel for Butler-Odegaard waiting to get on the bench, getting off the bench. But it's just not working for Raheem Strerling. It's just not. There was one nice run where he beat a few players into the box, and that was about it. But it's just not working for Strerling. It's just not working for Strerling. He's just offering so little to us, and I feel as though if we didn't have such a crisis in terms of numbers with Jesus out and Saka out, Nwaneri only just coming back from injury himself, Havertz having been ill, I think maybe there would have been more of an effort if Arsenal would have been able to get a signing or two through the door by now. It's really kind of we're really in a position with these players that we need them to perform at the absolute highest level, and Strerling is sadly and frustratingly not delivering when he's there. And I think that was shown even more by Ethan Nwaneri's contribution when he came on the field. The fact that you're taking off kind of an experienced 4-time Premier League winning player who's fit to play and bringing on a 17-year-old youth graduate in his place and immediately seeing more danger. Brilliant cross to Declan Rice, who should score. I can't believe Rice didn't get the ball at least on target. It was a horrendous header. Thank goodness he scored in the first half. Otherwise, we'd be having a conversation about Declan Rice's goal-scoring ability. But Nwaneri came on and just went at Dinamo, as he just goes at every team. He's got bundles of confidence. It was a brilliant tackle. I don't know if you noticed it at the end of the game. Dinamo managed to get a counter and he slid in right at the end to get a block in. The desire to buy into what Arteta has in terms of expectations. At the weekend, I think it'll probably be Martinelli and Trossard. But when we want to rotate again, Nwaneri has to be ahead of Strerling in the run in the pecking order. Absolutely has to be ahead of him. But we simply just can't seem to catch a break when it comes to injuries. Like Myles Skelly out with a knee complaint. Hopefully, it's not too bad. Hopefully, it's just a minor issue that he can shake off. He's going to be going for scans. Mikel Arteta confirmed that he will indeed be going for scans to see if there is any damage whatsoever, and if he needs a period of time to recover. That's the thing with these young players. When you give them opportunities at such a young level and they kind of make that big step up to the senior level, that they're not used to kind of playing to a high degree so often against such opponents, that injuries are quite common at such a young age. And that's why we saw it with Nwaneri recently, and now we've seen it with Myles Skelly. Hopefully it's not too bad, and hopefully it'll be okay. But he is going to be going for scans today, I think, to determine the extent of the problem. But hopefully he's going to be all right. And Arteta was in a very good mood after the game, despite the frustration of injury. Some interesting kind of comments from the presser. He's having a fair few more back and forth. So I, got into something of that with him after the game regarding Kai Havertz. Havertz, of course, getting to 14 goals in all competitions, 22 games faster than he did the previous season. Havertz scored 14 goals in 52 games last year. He scored 14 goals in 30 games this year, which, by the way, is a record, just ever so slightly worse than 1 in 2. And when you're looking at kind of goals scoring across the board for centre forwards, that's nothing to sniff at. A goal record that's effectively 1 in 2 for Havertz this season is strong. It's not world class, But it's far better than what people are giving him credit for. It's far better than what people are saying about Havertz, considering everything that we're going through as well. He's got 4 assists on top of that also. But 8 goals in 19 Premier League games, 4 goals and 2 assists in 7 Champions League games. And, these Champions League games that really matter. Our easier games have only come round during this most recent period, through Dinamo, of course, goal and assist against them. But in the Champions League, he scored in the last 3 successive Champions League games against Dinamo, Monaco and Sporting. He's got 2 assists in the last 2 Champions League games, scored against PSG, of course, who just gave Manchester City a very, very interesting scenario, which we'll talk about more so. I think that Arteta was right to point out when he asked me and said, "What do you think?" And actually, I'll be very honest, I kind of panicked in that moment. I wasn't expecting him to come back and be like, "Well, what do you think?" Because I'm sitting there thinking, it's not my job to give opinions. It's my job to ask questions. And if I'd have had more time, I would have said what he said, which is obviously, as I've been saying to you for weeks, this wasn't a case of hindsight. I've been saying to you for a very long time that the reality is of Havertz very different to what people are kind of perceiving of him. And what we've seen from Havertz is some frustrating missed opportunities, that's for sure. But the goal record that he's got this season and the improvements that he's made in his game compared to last season is impressive and is certainly important. And it's a real shame that some people have even seen try to downplay that. I don't really get the desperation some supporters have. Like PW here, surely you should measure it by chances created for him, missed and scored. Like, I don't know what the desperation of some fans is. Like, what's wrong with just celebrating a player for what they've produced there? What's wrong with that? Have a real hard think for a second. What's wrong with just, for a second, this isn't a broader picture about the striker. Just for those that are so insecure, the thumbnail was a joke. All right. Clearly, we need a striker. I'm not turning around and saying that we don't. It's a joke. You really should get my humor and sarcasm by this point. Havertz has scored and got an assist in the last game. And yet people are panicking that means that Arsenal are now not going to go into the market and sign anybody, or they're quick to kind of go, well, what about the chances he's missed? We're Arsenal supporters, people. We're Arsenal fans. And people's instinct after our centre forward has gone and got a goal and assist, their first instinct is to leave comments that are nothing other than criticisms and concerns. And it's very strange. I find it very odd when people get themselves into kind of these rings. But your primary should be, it's great, fantastic, fair play, Havertz. We can have a broader conversation later on about the striker situation for sure. But the panic that people have to turn around and just be like, oh, but what about his finishing? What about those chances he missed? Oh, goodness gracious me. Just celebrate once. Just support your player for once, people. Anyway, it's not 100%. It's not quite, but it's good enough. Arsenal are third in the Champions League table on 16 points. They are 3 points clear of 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th and 13th, and have a significant goal difference of a 7+ goal difference on Aston Villa in 9th place, and will be expected to beat Girona in the last game and not to see a significant turnaround in that scoreline that would see them miss out. So that's all looking very positive indeed. It's looking really, really strong. So, that's really, really positive that Arsenal have got into this position. When you consider the pure outrage of supporters this season, that this season's been a disaster and we're not being good enough. We sit second in the league. We've reached a League Cup semi-final, and we're third in the Champions League table when you see the likes of Man City, where they are, the likes of Real Madrid, where they are, Bayern Munich, being beaten 3-0 by Feyenoord last night, and seeing kind of where those teams are in the context of Arsenal's season. It is a bit spoiled, isn't it? It is a bit spoiled. I can't help but think that there's an incredible kind of lack of perception of what Arsenal are doing right now. I know we're demanding. I know we want more. I know we want titles. I know we want trophies. Yes, but we're in January. There's a long, long, long way to go still. Can we not just enjoy the ride for a bit and enjoy and take a step back for a second and look at where we are, look at what we're doing? I sincerely hope that we can, because otherwise it's going to be very painful. JS Shell, thank you so much for your this was sent in to me the other day. I didn't bring it up during the Aston Villa games. I didn't think it was tonally the right time. But of course, I set some of you a bit of a challenge last week, and to send in your Nando's and who would travel the furthest when it came to locking in their Nando's journeys and trying the very much coveted chocolate cake. Well, JSL, who sent in, travelled all the way from San Antonio to London last week to enjoy, as you can see on the screen there, a slice of chocolate cake, and did indeed rave about it. Did indeed rave about it brilliantly. So thank you, JS, and for everybody else that sent in their hashtag TGT Nando's on Blue Sky and on Twitter. If you do, of course, this is still open. Feel free. Can you beat that? Can you travel further from San Antonio to London to have a slice of chocolate cake in Nando's? Who knows? TJR says, "What's this? Utter woke nonsense." You gotta love it. Let's just bring the mood up a little bit. Goodness me, we've won a game and people are ranting and raving. Right, let's go to part 2 and get your questions and thoughts right after this. Gary says, Havertz, 33 goals in 71 games, 9 games in centre midfield. That's a great return for 60 million spread over 5 years. So we've only paid less than half of that at this point, and Havertz has paid us back and then some as well. I know not everyone's going to agree with you, Gary, but it's a really fair point. Derek says, how come there are young players preparing all their life to come play in the Premier League? Myles, Lewis, Ethan, Nwaneri. Why? What do you mean, why are there players preparing? Why wouldn't they be? Of course they're preparing for it, and that's why they've reached this stage and succeeded so well as well. Mammy says, Leipzig are out. Leipzig were out before this game, this round of fixtures even turned up. Benjamin Sesko, of course, scoring against Victor Gyökeres's Sporting last night, and leaving Sporting's position as well. We kind of looked at that table a second ago. Sporting currently in 23rd. They were once in the top 8 before they played Arsenal. Arsenal beat them and absolutely smashed them in their own ground, and all of a sudden, things have changed quite a lot. Harish says, did last night end our fantasy and dream of getting Barcola? I don't think that dream ever existed, Harish, to be honest. I think it was very much a circumstantial situation. Have Kvaratskhelia moving in, people assuming that meant that he would be moving, that Barcola might become available. I think we can all admit now that was very much a pipe dream made up by fans during that period. Drunks Are Us says, Tom, question, will we be able to afford a top DM winger and centre forward in the summer? I certainly hope so. It's a new PSR cycle, so you would certainly hope so indeed. Alex says, Tom, have you seen the rhetoric about us in the Mirror? It talks about us dropping into the playoffs, just feels a bit anti-Arsenal. Does it? I haven't seen it. I'll have a look. Arsenal Mirror. Arsenal Champions League nightmare that could see Gunners drop to playoffs. What's this? So, I think isn't it just a piece that's talking about kind of what needs to happen for Arsenal not to qualify? I think maybe Alex. I know. Look, I'll be the first to call out where I think that there are, there are times when the media in general can be a little bit down on Arsenal. But I think this is just a piece on what would need to happen for Arsenal not to qualify. So maybe we've taken that one a little bit too far. I think it's more of an informative piece there. Lucas says, sorry I'm late, Tom, but this is my first time watching your show live. I've been listening on audio for more than a year and I've really enjoyed the show. Thank you, Lucas. That's very kind of you indeed. TJR says, Kai's fine. Fee was marginally too high. Wages are too high, but not going to break the salary structure, which is clearly more important than what happens on the pitch. Sometimes it's all about the spreadsheets. Carl says, I hate being disparaging to our players, but Sterling looked like the kid that owned the ball, when growing up, and you just have to let them play. It's that kind of lack of initiative to release early enough sometimes from Sterling. He should play the pass earlier and just doesn't, and I don't quite get why. Stevens has conveniently left out Gyökeres scoring. Gyökeres agenda, people. Oh no, I've got an agenda against Gyökeres. I'm conveniently leaving it out that he's I can't get over the superstition of some of these listeners. They make me laugh. Johnny says, would you take Cunha in the winter for 50 million? I said yesterday I don't think I'd pay over 40 for Cunha. But I wouldn't be disappointed necessarily if it ended up costing 50. I'd be disappointed if it meant that we couldn't sign anybody in the forward line by spending 50. That would be a frustrating one. Joe says, Tom, why do you think the Sporting left out Gyökeres on the bench and brought him on later? Seemed quite an odd decision when they were only 2 points clear of the top 24. Yeah, I have absolutely no idea, Joe, to be honest. I have no idea. No idea why he was put on the bench. Nacho says we should try get Barcola. We should help him agitate his way out of PSG. City wouldn't have gotten Haaland if they hadn't prepared in advance. I think that situation is very different, Nacho. I mean, Haaland had a buyout clause for starters. And, he's moving to Manchester City in that situation. Barcola doesn't have a buyout clause as far as I'm aware. So it's a different scenario entirely. Jones says, I don't think Havertz is the guy, but he is objectively not a bad player. I do think he is scapegoated because people simply don't like him. And that's come from his Chelsea and the wages that he's on. Yeah, people just don't like him. Some people just don't like him. And it's amazing to me that we can sit here and I can make a joke in the thumbnail about Havertz and people take it incredibly seriously. Oh, come on, guys, just cheer up a bit. We're second in the league. We're third in the Champions League table. In the League Cup semi-final. Just cheer up a bit. Come on. Just won a game 3-0 in Europe. Let's be a bit more smiling this morning, shall we? Roy says, Tom, blue kit, no shirt sponsor, smashed by us. Were Zagreb, Chelsea in disguise. AK says, Gonçalo Ramos of PSG. What do you think? He's almost forgotten by PSG. He did well in Benfica. I'm not sure. I've got a lot of time for Gonçalo. Long-time listeners of the show will know that Gonçalo Ramos was very kind enough to contribute one of our members' messages back in the day. When we reached... What was it we reached? We reached like 100. Did we reach 100 members on the channel? And it was a while ago I did this, but I got like a load of special guests that kind of contributed to the channel. Some of them were regular contributors. Some of them were footballers. And I actually got Gonçalo Ramos to send in a message to a couple of our members. Which, because he was at Benfica, because I interviewed him when he was at Benfica, so we follow each other. So I just dropped him a DM like, "Hey, mate, I'm just doing kind of a thing for my listeners. Would you send in a quick video for a couple of them, just saying you're absolute legends?" And to be fair to Gonçalo, he did it. And so I've always had a soft spot for Gonçalo, and seeing his rise now and playing for PSG is great. I don't know if I can find or dig out that video. I can't remember what he says. I can't remember who the people that it was that he did the video to, but he was like, so-and-so and so-and-so, you're absolute legends. And now he's like one of the most expensive strikers in the world. And he did this video for TGT, and it was just hilarious, just because we follow each other, and I was able to send him a DM and ask after I interviewed him. So what an absolute legend himself for doing that. TJR says that Fabio Cannavaro's his haircut is what lost it for Zagreb. It is amazing how that has recovered, isn't it, from his playing days. Drunk Sora says Havertz is a good player. He's just not world class. How many centre forwards have we had that are genuinely world class over the last 30 years? I mean, how many strikers in the world right now are world class? I just it's such a small number. Hold on. The sneeze. Oh, I don't think we're done. Are we? No, we weren't. Okay, there we go. It's out of me. I don't think there are too many, and like proper world-class strikers currently available. And I think that's why we're going to have to go out and probably sign someone that could become world-class. And that's why I think that Sesko is the Davor Suker was not world-class when he eventually wound up at Arsenal. He was back in the day. I don't know if Carnu. I don't know if I describe Carnu. Trust me, I'd love Carnu as much as the next guy. I'm not sure I'd go that far, but certainly your Bergkamps, Henrys, and Van Persie's was as well. Redemption, you can't respond to it, so just call it trolling. Nice. What's trolling? Have I missed a comment? What's the comment? Oh, here we go. Redemption says Kai is useless, but you have the Arsenal you deserve. Enjoy, keep going. No major trophies. Netflix FC. Weren't we on Amazon? I'm pretty sure it was on Amazon we were on Redemption, wasn't it? I mean, if you're going to troll, at least get it right. Come on, that's just lazy. That's awful trolling. Can't even get the right streaming service. Maestro Magic says no one has an issue with Havertz. Oh, no one has an issue with Havertz. All right, mate. All right, mate. Spencer says, Tom, my brother, and I thought you were calling me your brother then, Spencer. There's a comma there. Tom, my brother and I travelled to the Emirates from Kentucky for the Zagreb game and went to Nando's earlier in the week. The chocolate cake was to die for. You know, what can I say? I know my cake. And it's been a reason for the New Year's resolution of getting out and running more. But yeah, it's good, isn't it? It's very nice. Very nice indeed. Ghost says, I have an issue. There you go. Exactly. There you go. The trolling got trolled by another one of our trolls. It's quite the inception this morning. Harish says, Tom, regarding Osimhen, are we really going back here? We've been here before. His finishing numbers aren't as good as Sesko. I've said my piece on Osimhen. I don't think we need to go around the houses. I really don't think we need to go around the houses on this at all. It's just not needed. King says Netflix is from the banter from Evra saying with Arsenal, we're always waiting for next season. Oh, I see. Fair enough. Fair enough. Maybe I didn't give our latest troll enough credit. Oliver says, I like Martinelli's shot from the centre of the game. We should get him in more chance creating areas and kind of those positions. Absolutely. And says, Tom, how are you? Arsenal did me proud on my birthday yesterday. Happy birthday, Anthony. Highbury squad Soph is joining us in the chat box. Says, I wonder if Kai has ever had a Nando's. I don't know. I should say. I mean, what Emil Smith Rowe, wasn't he famous for saying on the Amazon documentary, which Redemption loved so much, that he was having a Nando's one night? I'm pretty sure he was made famous for saying that. Juice WRLD says, do you think we can win the Champions League? I mean, we can win it. Do I think we will win it is a different question, but we absolutely can win it. Damien says, what I love about the thumbnail is that you knew when you put it up that people, of course I knew. Of course I know how sensitive some of our little trolls are, David. Of course I knew what I was doing. We're one of the most sensitive fan bases in the world. They can't take a joke to save their lives. Of course I knew what I was doing. Stephen says, in my opinion, people don't like Kai because he will be in a great position in the pitch and one-on-one with a defender or goalkeeper, and he doesn't always excel. Misses chances and goes down to ground too easy. I don't think there needs to be a massive inquiry on the Havertz thing. We've really done this to death at this point. He's a good player. He's just not a great player. He's got a goal record for Arsenal this season of around 1 in 2. That's really good. It's just not elite. And, you know, if Arsenal are going to go to that next level and win leagues and Champions Leagues on the regular, we need a striker that's getting better than 1 in 2 and getting closer to 1 in 1 or even better than that. You know, if you're a bad striker, you're not getting 14 goals in 30 games. I don't think he's a striker. I think he's more of a centre forward, kind of a second striker type player. But if you're a bad player, you're not scoring that many goals, even if you're playing for Arsenal. I don't care. You know, there's been plenty of players that have been playing for Arsenal and never got anywhere close to 1 in 2. So, look, he's a decent player. It's just, we just need more. And I don't think Havertz is going to be it. That said, if we sign that kind of player, ultimately he's going to be playing with Havertz. Maestro said he's not that. If he's not that elite player, why is he on that amount of money? Because that's just the reality of what you pay when you go and get a player from another Premier League club for that amount of money at that age. That's just what they cost. That's just what they cost. So it's as simple as that, really. It's not, and to be fair, he doesn't get that amount of money every week. It's also not that high. It's a bit of a misconception that he's on 300 grand a week. I think it's more like 275. And then when it is 275, it's only because he's met all of the different requirements to get that. So there you go. Schlamed says, please ban Sophie. I can't stand her. Schlamed can't stand the opinions of women in football for some reason. Very strange behaviour. Michael says, Tom, which competition do you think we have the best chance of winning without getting any January signings at all? I mean, you could argue that you're one game away from reaching the League Cup final. So even this team is capable of turning that scoreline around without those signings. It's going to take a massive performance, but we definitely know that we're capable of it. We beat Newcastle 4-1 last season at home. If we repeat that scoreline again, yes, away from home, more tricky, definitely, but we know we're capable of it. So, yeah, I think it's, you could argue it's the League Cup because you're only 2 games away from winning it, but it's a big, big effort needed in the second leg of that competition to try and get that result back. But 2-0 is not an unassailable challenge. If it was 3 or 4, maybe, but 2-0 is at half time. We know that Arsenal can be beaten or, can be got back from 2-0 up. So absolutely, we should be able to do that as well. Brandtail says the current vibe of online fans is a bit toxic. Are you nuts? Some of our fans are horrible, absolutely horrible. The vibe is very, very dour at the moment, considering the context of Arsenal where we are right now. The vibe is nowhere near where it should be. No, nowhere. I thought the atmosphere last night was dreadful, by the way. It was really bad. I love the attempts, that whole kind of light show thing they did with the phones. Like, I think it could be better. I think if they did it to make it, I don't know if you can change the iPhone torch to red. I don't think you can. Maybe what you could do is use the front screen. So, like, if you use the front screen of the phone and lit that up red, and then people show the front screen of their phones on that app, maybe that's the way you could do it to make it red. But when it was white, it didn't look as good because you got the white lights. I think if you could have red screens being shown, that would work better because you could have the red and white. But the torches, I don't think it works as well. Plus, I don't think there was maybe enough. There's a lot of people that had it, to be fair, and downloaded it. A lot of people did it. But obviously, I think with more notice, more encouragement, it could be a really quite a spectacular spectacle, if indeed it worked. Michael, thank you so much for the kind donation. I don't know if you meant to leave a super chat in, Michael. I'll try and spot your follow-up comment if you leave one, because maybe you clicked the enter button a little bit too quickly. Maximia says, Tom, the bottle that was hurled at Rice when he came on to take a corner kick, the Zagreb fans injuring other fans is rank behaviour. UEFA needs to look closely and penalise them. And I sincerely hope that they are punished, of course. I really do. I sincerely hope that that is the case. And certainly I hope that anybody that was hit or affected by that is not too... I saw some people suggest that some people have been really badly hurt by it. So if you have been, make sure you raise it with the relevant authorities and hopefully some action can be taken where it needs to be. Lachlan says, how do we navigate the away fan issue? Our players shouldn't be subject to being attacked, but the council thinks it's apparently safer. Yeah, I mean, it is a safety regulation that they are in that corner. Apparently that it's safe enough for fans to be up in the gods at Newcastle, but not so much in the Emirates. So I don't know. There must be reasons why. It sucks, but yeah, that is the reality at the moment. Has Michael left a follow-up comment? I can't see one. I'll keep my eye out, Michael, for you. Thank you again for the kind donation. Juicewad says, we are going trophyless again this season. The fans' behaviour is justified. What a joyful person. Mark says, Zinni not best defensively, but I'm remembering wrongly. We saw the best of Martinelli and Trossard when Zinchenko was a regular. So yeah, maybe I've overlooked Zinchenko's performance, perhaps. I think Zinchenko had a very decent game. Absolutely. Gary says, I don't do social media unless you count. YouTube is a social media, yeah. So I always think it's ironic people say I don't do social media as they leave a comment on another social media platform. If you want to say I don't do Twitter or whatever, I mean, I've just cancelled my premium subscription on X. Can't justify giving any more money in that direction. But yeah, just, YouTube is another social media platform. Evan says, get those likes up, people. We just won a Champions League game and secured our position in the last 16 as well. Alexander says, Tom, what attacking traits are missing in our squad? People will say a clinical striker, which is true. However, besides Saka, I still feel as though we lack a player that can score out of nothing. I think you've answered your own question, Alex. Clinical striker absolutely is missing, and a player that has got that kind of match-winning spark about them. Yeah, that something else. We just need something a bit more special. And maybe that comes from the striker that you signed. Maybe that comes from that player. And certainly Sesko has produced some brilliant goals we've seen in the Bundesliga for Leipzig that would certainly take that. That would certainly be a big, big kind of moment. So yeah, I'd have to go with that as an answer. Evans also saying about getting the likes. I thank you, mate. Proper Medja says, any worries about Wolves? We haven't done well with Wednesday, Saturday back to back recently. Of course, there's worries. You know, there's players that aren't yet fully fit. Calafiori and Myles Skelly not fully fit yet. Hopefully they're going to be okay. We'll wait and see. I'm away this weekend, so I'm not actually at the game. I'm finally getting a weekend off, so I will be catching up on things. I'll still be doing the shows for you over the weekend and making sure I'm fully, clued up on what's going down. But I'm not at the game this weekend. I've got a weekend off and I'm going away and enjoying some much needed rest during these next few days. Gary says, do any male YouTubers get chastised over the... I mean, absolutely, I'm sure. But let's not pretend that it's a space that's much, much more challenging for a woman to speak in this space. It just is more challenging, and it's a shame that Sophie and others, I'll end up just missing out people that get so much stick. Sadly, just because they are, they're not men. And it's as simple as that for some people, and we know that's the case because we've done shows talking about the abuse that Declan Rice's other half has suffered before, and women in football continues to be a topic of very much high importance that needs to be spoken about more, because it shouldn't ever be just a male only space. And, just attending football matches, and it goes beyond just football games, but attending football matches can be a daunting experience. I don't want to hope I'm not coming across patronizing. It's certainly not my intention. We really try and raise this issue and talk about it as much as possible. But, attending matches, I mean, I can walk to a game, attend a football match, and walk home with 99% assurance that I'm going to be fine. I'm not going to be approached. I'm not going to have to feel scared. I'm not going to have to be worried about who's looking at me, who's anywhere near around me. And I sometimes feel compelled, to cross the street sometimes because it makes because just the presence of a man can be a really threatening thing and not to all, but it's just a reality because sadly the violence exists so prevalently, particularly around football. So it's definitely a conversation that we need to continue to raise. That is for sure. But Richard says Sophie has better football takes than most of the guys. Maybe they're just jealous. Absolutely. Mark says, what do you think about Liam Delap? Talented young striker. Not sure if he is of the level. Absolutely. Amira says, speaking of the women's team, they won 5-0 again. Cup semi-finalist. Absolutely. Lucas says, why do you think there has been no female managers of my knowledge in the men's game? And do you think that will change? I think eventually we will see it. There has been some interim coaches, Forest Green, for example. There's been some interim situations, but there's never been a permanently employed female head coach in the men's game. The reason being is because the women's game, of course, for a long time, and still now, has never had the same level of resources that the men's game has got. That for decades, women weren't even allowed to play football. So the men's game has obviously advanced and developed in is a much further advanced sport because of the resources that have been, chucked into it. But there's a lot been going on behind this. I mean, I think I saw the other day that there was revenues of, 18 million euros around the women's team, which is brilliant for Arsenal this season. And, that needs to improve. And eventually, I think we will see it. I think we will see a women's head coach in the men's game. And gradually, it will not. I don't think it will be commonplace for a very, very, very long time. But I think it will be something that we start to see. And, people should be judged on their performance. People should be judged on their on their achievements, and hopefully we see it, and it'd be great to see it. Out and out Gunner says, do you think stuff like both Arsenal teams playing at the same time does the game no favours? Yeah, I mean, absolutely. It's a shame that scheduling goes on, and then there should be more time. I mean, scheduling in general in football is an absolute mess, needs to change, and hopefully it does. Any news on Cini and Jorginho transfers? Nothing at the moment. I'm aware that there have been talks regarding Jorginho. I'm not aware of anything beyond the interest in Zinchenko going any further yet, but there's definitely been conversations with Flamengo and Jorginho, but I'm unaware if that's going to lead. From the sounds of it, Flamengo want to do a deal where they basically don't pay a fee, which I think for Arsenal to agree to would be utterly ridiculous. By the way, I think that's one of the best £12 million investments Arsenal have ever made. What a signing Jorginho has been for 12 million quid. 10 plus 2 even. I don't know how much of that 2 million in add-ons we've paid. It has been a very successful investment, that Jorginho deal. Very, very successful indeed. And TGR says the reason being is that most professional sports have an underbelly of toxic masculinity and misogyny. And sadly, yes, that is the case. Jason asked what was the atmosphere like yesterday. It wasn't great. It wasn't. It wasn't the best. So it was very. The Dinamo fans were brilliant in their support, not so brilliant in some of their actions, but the actual atmosphere that they created was very good. Sadly, it was ruined by some of the behaviour of some of the individuals in that crowd. But yeah, it was. It was very much a frustration for those that I think went along hoping for a European night that didn't quite get that there. It's just, I think it comes from that expectation that this is a game that Arsenal should win pretty comfortably, and if they aren't winning comfortably, the noise isn't going to be there. You know, when we play Manchester City at the start of next month, I expect that to be a really, really, really brilliant game, and I expect the atmosphere to be unrivaled and one of the best. But yeah, we'll have to wait and see. Nikhil, thank you so much for the kind donation. Mates, you will need to dance for all of us at the end of the season if we miraculously manage to win the Premier League or Champions League, or in fact, even both. First dance for signing a centre forwards. Thank you, Nikhil, for your kind words, and of course for the donation. I said if we won the league last season, I'd sing the Waka Waka song. Sadly, we didn't win the league. I've not made any promise of such this season, and I haven't planned on making any kind of promise yet. I don't think I've needed to. The likelihood of winning the league is quite small at the moment, so maybe that will change. Let's just see how the season plays out, Nikhil. I hope it does. Let's go. I think we're probably going to end the show there, actually. I've just realised what the time is. I've been going on way longer than I thought. Thank you so much, as always, for tuning in. Really appreciate your time. Have a fantastic Thursday. It's been an absolute pleasure to speak with you and to listen to some of your thoughts in the chat box. I'm just scrolling up now. So many of you in here, nearly 1,500 of you. In that chat. Thank you so much for tuning in. Appreciate your time, and have an absolutely fantastic Thursday. I'll be back with you tomorrow morning, bright and early. And if you listen to another big Arsenal podcast, maybe you'll hear a familiar voice. Have a fantastic Thursday. Stay safe, stay well, stay happy, respectful, and as always, up the Arsenal.